Welcome to the Kindness Project, the podcast designed to share stories of kindness and share how kindness can make positive change in our world, one small act at a time.
In this week's episode of the Kindness Project, we talk about Netflix, Taskmaster, and we have part one of our interview with Paula Petry PhD.
Welcome one and all to another episode of the Kindness Project. I'm joined today by two blokes. Both are just sitting here chilling. It's a nice...
I'm not chilling. I'm down to business today. I mean business. Do you mean business, Raz?
I'm chilling.
Oh, he's chilling. He's chilling. He's having a chill day. What does a chill day look like for you, Raz?
A chill day?
Describe your ideal Sunday.
You must know that I never take time off. You must.
You need to chill more. I mean, surely, like, I think we're probably all guilty of this, but I think getting balance in our lives is really important, don't you think?
I think for me, I really struggle with that, detaching from, if I've got something to do, I'll sit here and I'll put the telly on and it'll bug me till it's done.
Well, you know what? I suppose we want to maintain an element of intellectual activity, don't we? Like, I'd rather not be bored. And I'm not a great lover of, like, I like Netflix documentary, but I'm not a great lover of, like, mindless TV.
No,
like Mum loves a bit of Love Island, doesn't she?
I don't like Love Island.
I'm not okay.
This time, probably 5 years ago now, I could sit and watch mindless telly all day long. Now I just can't stand it.
No, you've made a real shift in your life, effectively, to the right. So much so that you're on Love Island next year, right, Sonia?
No. I'm going to...
You were on Love Island.
Am I?
I'm going to Amazon next year, but not Love Island.
Well, the only shows that I'd go on, okay, and actually they're probably the ones I watch. Point is, I know it's only celebrities and I don't qualify. Richard Osman's House of Games.
Yeah.
Hunted. I'd love to try and escape from the Rosas for 4 weeks. I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
And my new all-time favourite, Race Around the World. That looks amazing. And every time I put... Why are you shaking your head, Raz?
I don't know where it is. Race Around the World.
It's basically where two people try and get to different places across the world, and they've got a final destination, but they've got checkpoints they've got to get along the way. And they just race.
It's on iPlayer, so you can watch it on the BBC iPlayer. But effectively, they do. And so the first series, I think, came out in 2021. I can't remember, but they started them off in.
You mentioned it to me before, and I'll give you a watch.
Yeah, they started the first series. They started them off at Greenwich, and they had to get not by flight, but by any other means of transport. So it's a bit like what you and I did last year, wasn't it? From Greenwich to the top of the infinity pool in that famous hotel in Singapore, which is on my list, by the way. By any means possible, hitting checkpoints along the way. Then they did, the last one they did was all the way across Canada. So they started one side of Canada and then had to go all the way to the other side. And I just like the adventure of it. Like the adventure of it. It's going to be like you next year with your machete as you're sort of walking your way through the desert, isn't it?
Is it?
You know what I think I'd be?
Do you know what? It's a long way off, but I'm really looking forward to it.
You know what I think I'd be good on? I'd be funny on Taskmaster.
Oh yes, Taskmaster is amazing. That is a great show. I like Taskmaster, actually.
Yeah, I like Taskmaster.
What would be your Taskmaster personality? Some are ridiculous. Some are sarcastic.
From the In-Betweeners on that.
The teacher, Greg Davies.
Greg
Wasn't
Davies.
he a teacher in life as well?
He was a teacher in real life. Yeah, Greg Davies was a teacher in a show, teacher in real life, and now he's just a bit of a condescending.
Oh, he's funny.
Yeah, I mean, he is fun, he's hilarious, but his personality in it is to be the Taskmaster,
Yeah.
isn't it? Did you know that Alex Horton invented Taskmaster,
I
but he
did.
didn't think he had the personality to be
Yeah.
the Taskmaster? So he's the actual Taskmaster.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So what would be your we played a bit of Taskmaster during lockdown, didn't we? Do you remember when they used to have they used to have the online tasks that you could do, and
That
it
was
was like,
great marketing for them.
oh, amazing, brilliant.
I'd
And-
never heard of it before you showed me those videos.
Yeah, they really like sparked curiosity during lockdown, didn't they? And now we've watched all of them, I think. You know, the other one that sparked curiosity during lockdown was Grayson Perry's Art Club. Loved that during lockdown. That was a really good way to, like, sort of. What was your lockdown curiosity of choice? Can you remember? Russ?
Lockdown was when I got into actual plays. So like people playing D&D and other TTRPGs. Lockdown was when I got into that because like 2 years before I decided I wanted to learn how to play, and I started learning how to play, and then lockdown happened. So
You couldn't.
I couldn't. So I was like, I'm just gonna live vicariously my dreams of playing.
So where did you live? I mean, my vicarious living during lockdown was watching people walk around tourist sites around London.
I remember that.
Jules Walks, amazing YouTube channel. We'll check it out, listeners. It's definitely worth a watch. Russ, what's your vicarious
I got
lockdown?
right into during lockdown? Classical music.
Oh,
Go on.
I love staying at home. You know that I don't enjoy being in social.
Says the man who's going to be hacking through the Amazon in a
I
year's
don't
time.
enjoy being in social situations.
yeah.
But during lockdown, when we couldn't go out, I really started craving going out, and I was getting quite stressed at home. So
You weren't alone, Russ. I think that's 99% of the population.
That was like me though. I was like,
classical music just keep myself calm. And
what's your go-to potential question of the podcast, if that exists anymore?
No.
No, it doesn't. What's your go-to classical music track?
I like the ones with instrumental and vocal. So I like Hayley Westenra, Amy Nuttall done a good album. Them sort of ones.
Is that considered classical?
El Devo, yeah, it's classical pop.
I see what you mean. Right, okay.
Basic classical.
I thought you were talking classical.
Well, that for me is classical. It helps me relax.
You know what one I like? Because it always makes it. No. Yes. Do 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 do.
You know what I like?
The Alton Towers advert.
No, not the Alton Towers advert. In the Hall of the Mountain King.
You know
That classic track, the Alton Towers advert.
You nearly got covered in coffee then.
You know what one I like when we're talking about adverts, classical music? The Ovis advert.
I was going to say the Golden Pair ads.
Go Bear.
You know what I like? Classical music wise, not ad wise. Rage Over a Lost Penny. It's just.
I don't think I've ever heard that.
Oh no! It perfectly encapsulates the feeling of its title.
Radio for a Lost Penny.
Rage Over a Lost Penny.
Rage Over a Lost Penny. I mean, I like the classics. I like the Four Seasons. I like the Planets. All of that sort of good stuff. But Hall of the Mountain, in the Hall of the Mountain King, and you know what? That's nostalgic for me. So not because of the Alton Towers adverts.
Because the time I fell asleep on you after that woman had a go at me for eating crisps.
You know what?
Right, you need to expand on that story.
The best ever song from ABBA is Karnika, Colours Are Calling Us.
Right.
Yeah,
What's that from?
that's from the Karnika ABBA.
What's Karnika?
What's Karnika?
Well, they're no more now
Karnika?
because they was brought out. But when we was growing up, the Karnika ABBA,
I think you were brought up on a different multiverse, Raz, because I don't even remember that advert.
oh, you gotta look it up. Karnika, Colours Are Calling Us.
It's always funnier when Russ sings,
Oh.
isn't it? Russ, can you, Russ,
how are you spelling Karnika?
Russ, do you remember Fraggle Rock?
Hold on, yeah.
How are you spelling Karnika? Because it keeps
Hold on,
taking me to Karnikava, which is apparently a beach location.
Right, should we stop Googling Karnika while we were trying to record a podcast?
Hold on.
Russ, do
I'm
you
finding
remember
it
Fraggle
now.
Rock theme tune? I've forgot it.
Hold on.
What's the Fraggle Rock theme tune, Russ?
I gotta pull the I don't know.
He just likes when you sing, Russ.
Russ, I forgot.
Theme song to Trapdoor.
Theme song to Trapdoor. Do you remember that, Russ?
Not all of it.
Not all of it, some of it though, Russ. Go on.
Hey, it's Trapdoor, the one with the two skeletons. What was
Were you born on a different planet, Russ?
what's the one with the two skeletons?
Right, I'll do Trapdoor if you do Banana Man.
What?
I don't think I remember.
What was
No.
Trapdoor?
No, I know what Banana Man is. I don't remember the theme song.
Right, don't you open that?
Trapdoor. No.
You're a fool if you dare. Stay away from that.
Trapdoor.
Because there's something down there. Do, 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 do.
Russ, do you remember the theme song for Funhouse?
Funhouse, a whole lot of fun. Go on. You must remember the theme tune to Funhouse,
I
Russ.
don't know. I ain't having no funnier at all.
Russ, do you remember I Need a Hero?
I was so upbeat before I come on here, and then
So sorry, Russ.
now I'm slumping into a depression.
What we want to bring your creativity out, Russ. And you've got such a beautiful singing voice. I mean, I can see the cats like all appearing outside your house just listening to you. But yeah, amazing
That's
stuff.
all I hear about it.
Yeah. Anyway, on that note, let's move on to
Kindness news.
Russ. Do you know how the Kindness News theme tune goes?
Kindness news.
Perfect.
Yep.
And on that note, we've got a Kindness News kids edition. A special birthday for a little girl in Hatboro who has a variety of medical complications. But mother's love has no boundaries, and it turns out that people you don't know can also be loving and filled with kindness. This story is about a unique little girl called Aria Zanoli. Zanoli has received hundreds and maybe thousands of cards and gifts from strangers. It's heartwarming and really, really amazing. Aria has been struggling with a lot of serious medical problems, and her mum wanted to do something special. So she posted on Facebook and Nextdoor asking for some birthday cards. It's kept on steamrolling, Jaskell said. I'm crying in the post office when I'm receiving thousands of cards. There were some hand-drawn pictures, a few gifts, and piles of cards. The kindness of strangers made a special birthday for that 6-year-old with some serious medical conditions. Jaskell said Ari has never had a traditional birthday because she's been too sick. Then she lost her hearing, developed kidney disease, a growth hormone deficiency, and now has a brain malformation. She's luckily completely unfazed by it, but all of these diagnoses kept unfolding, so that's all she's known. She's never known a normal, happy, healthy kid life. Katie says Aria's resilience has helped her stay strong. You mum up, and then you suck it up and deal with it in private. You cry and scream and do what you need to. I've never heard that phrase before. Mum up. I quite like that, because you think about the amount of stuff that mums have to deal with specifically. Not knowing the future, making this sixth birthday special was important for Katie, but it wouldn't have been what it was without the kindness of strangers playing such a big part. I feel like there's a small glimmer of hope that it's not so bad. Aria ended up having a chocolate ice cream cake, and Kate said she had a great day playing with her sisters, family, and friends. I love that. And you know what? I think if you give people the opportunity, they show how kind they can be.
Yeah.
And that is what I love. Second news article is about a dog called Rex. Exmouth dog dad's heartfelt beach ball tribute sparks community kindness. Paw prints left behind on the heart of a grieving dog dad in Exmouth promoted an emotional beach ball tribute to his beloved pet. Lumps formed in the throats of strangers and tears were quietly wiped away when beachgoers and dog walkers stopped in their tracks, spotting a lone box of tennis balls left on the wall overlooking the sea, in memory of Labrador Rex, the goodest of good boys. This might be a bit sad. Owner Jason Doone this week left Rex's tennis balls for other dogs to enjoy, explaining the gift was his way of having a last walk with his best friend who died earlier this month. He said, it was a way of having one last beach day with my once-in-a-lifetime dog who literally changed our lives in the better in so many ways. I've met so many people on walks over our 14 years together, and I couldn't tell you their names, but I could name their dogs, and they all knew Rex's name. Jason, who's really there for his dog, said Rex would be remembered in Exmouth for his toy giveaway, bringing the community together. He urged people to hug their pets. I'm going to give my dog a hug. Channel the kindness sparked by his dogs, and advise us all us be a bit more Rex. Jason said his family has found solace in the scores of heartfelt messages of sympathy sent by other pet owners, prompted to get in touch to offer their condolences after a beachgoer posted a photo of the box of balls on social media. I really, really, really like that story. That is amazing. I have got a bit of a soft spot for dog stories, you know.
Yeah, I do as well.
You know, they, you know,
I think any animal story resonates with people more than people's stories.
I don't think that's true. I mean, certainly human stories, including the one we've shared today, about...
Yeah, stories about kids and animals, it's always...
But I also like the adult stories we share where somebody's in need and they just help.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, that's a story about the dog, but that's a story about a human helping other humans and coping with grief in that way. You know, and again, I was talking about this yesterday, funny enough, using kindness to others to make sure that you're coping with your own challenges in life, I think is an amazing thing to do. It's certainly one proven to be.
I think that's great for a confidence boost, helping somebody else.
Yeah, 100%.
I also think you have a soft spot for stories about old people.
Yeah, I am a big fan of old
people, so
Sorry, Rose, did you just say you're not a fan of old people? I'm going to gloss over that very quickly.
Sorry, he didn't say it.
I'm going to gloss over that very quickly, and highlight the fact that I saw Toy Story 4 for the first time last week. We'll talk about the next episode of the podcast. Had a little cry because it was very emotional. So it doesn't take me a lot to get really emotional.
You managed to do that.
What?
Get quiet at the telly.
I do it all the time.
Pixar are the best storytellers of our generation, but that's why. And they get me in the feels every single time.
He can't listen to Married Life from Up. He can't.
And on that note, let's move on to our interview of the week. We've got Paula Petry this week. Paula's an amazing lady, and interestingly, one of those people who has used kindness in her life after tragic events to bring communities together, support them, help them, and is a real inspiration when it comes to kindness. Should we listen to part one of the interview? Paula, thank you so much for coming on the Kindness Project podcast. How are you?
I'm great. I'm really good today. Thank you.
Good
It's
stuff.
nice to be
And I
here.
know, yeah, lovely to have you as a guest. And I know that we started out off-air conversation on travel, and you were telling me about how you'd love to go to India. If you had a plane ticket to India tomorrow, where would the first place you visit be and why?
Gosh. Actually, I know a Swami who lived, of course, in an ashram in northern India and in the foothills of the Himalayas. And it would be my motivation would be to go there and to experience that through his eyes and to have that experience.
Amazing. And I suppose there's a lot we can learn from those Eastern cultures. I think sometimes we've got such a Western perspective on the world. Not learning from other parts of the world on how they view things is interesting, right? I think we need to do that a bit more. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I'm fascinated by the Eastern. I would say Eastern medicine. No, the whole different worldview of an understanding of who we are and what that means in terms of our daily lives and how we think about ourselves and the world and others. It's a very holistic approach, right? Rather than just the mind-body approach, but very holistic.
Well, I think there's a really good book about mental health. I was at the Hay Literary Festival, which is a big literary festival in Wales. It's in Hay on Wye in Wales, probably the UK's biggest literary festival. And there was a guy there I saw called Jonah Harry, Hari, and he wrote a book called Lost Horizons, talking about how we treat mental health. And what was interesting about it is the fact that, and I think this is probably indicative of a lot of Western philosophy, is we jump immediately towards prescribing medicines to solve a problem. Particularly, I mean, in the UK, it's probably quite pertinent. You know, if you go along and say, I'm suffering from depression, for example.
Oh, absolutely.
The first step is here's a pill. And actually, I think we need to probably be a bit more, as you say, holistic in our worldview to think about how we can, you know, not that I think the doctors are doing what they can with what they've got, but that was a really interesting book and a really interesting talk. It really sort of opened my mind to looking at things from different perspectives.
No, absolutely. I mean, just the idea of kindness. And thank you for inviting me on a program about kindness. It's amazing. I love being that here and the impact of kindness on our mind, on our brain chemistry, right? Because we've known a lot now in neuroscience about brain chemistry and what creates those changes that are positive and those releases of that serotonin, for example, right? Or the oxytocin, where, you know, all the hugs that you get, you know, which is kindness is about connection and hugging and you get the good juju, you know, being created in your brain. So I think there's a whole different formula now for wellness that is there and available, and I love all efforts that get the message out to people.
So it's really interesting. I spoke at an event because as I said to you before the interview, I'm doing a lot of speaking to promote the book at the minute. I spoke at this event last week. This guy came up to me and he said to me, so he said, I'm a retired police officer. So my outlook on life when I was a police officer, and I think his perspective on it was that this was just a sort of part of the job, was to be quite not unkind, but quite cynical about the behaviour of other people, because his job was to find criminals. So, and he said, once I retired, I was looking for something to do, and so he volunteers at the food bank. So effectively, for people who can't afford to feed their families, in the UK, we have these charities that set up that feed other families. And he said, I volunteered 3 days a week at the food bank. And what I've realised, Chris, is whereas previously I was cynical about people who came to food banks, now I realise they're just people struggling and need some help. But what he said, and he said it with a really interesting, I had a grin on his face. He said, but Chris, what I didn't realise was how much being kind helps me. And like people will come and I will help them out and, you know, talk to them and like sort of make them like enjoy the experience. And they'll leave and go, look, thank you, Steve. That was a really good, like, thank you for taking the time to make me feel human again. Because often, I suppose it is like when you can't afford stuff, there's an element of loss of dignity that he brings back by treating them like humans. So he was telling me about that. But then the other thing he said to me was, they wander off, and under my breath, I go, no, thank you, because I get a lot out of the helping others, because of all of, as you say, all of those chemicals kick into the brain where you're doing something else. So yeah, I think, I always say kindness is, works in both ways. However, I'm not here to talk about my experiences talking about the book. I'm here to share your story. So, but those of our audience who don't know who you are, Paula, tell us a bit about you.
Well, interesting, in terms of my roots, Chris, I actually have from 4 generations ago, my ancestors came from the Yorkshire area of England.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I grew on the other side of my family from Germany, only 2 generations ago. I grew up in Northern Illinois. My adventurous spirit, I would say now looking back, led me to marry a man from Colombia, from South America. And our first child, Alex, was born with a significant disability. And that shaped my entire adult life. Everything has, until up to now, has been shaped around that in a very positive way. Of course, came with that a lot of strife, struggle, some suffering in that. But it shaped it in a very positive way. I founded Parent to Parent in Miami, when you talk about helping others. So that was parent organization still existing, helps 5,000 families every year based out of Miami, Florida, but helps beyond that as well. But parents who have a child with a disability. And the whole idea of actually Bandura's work on if you can do it, I can do it. So that those role models, right? And just offering that kindness to people who are in despair. So I really moved through my grief unknowingly by finding all of these incredible, what became our first board of directors. And they became these huge movers and shakers in Miami and elsewhere around disability. And
so how did parents...
Yeah.
We'll talk a bit about what you're doing there, but I'm really interested about Parent to Parent Miami. So, how did that start, and what was the motivation for you starting that organisation?
Whoa! Like I already have like tears welling up, right? Such a powerful time in my life. But Alex was born in the DR. We knew we needed to leave. We landed in Miami, and it's just, I feel that there's destiny moments, right? That just, so I had opportunities just came my way. And I really think it came from the Joseph Campbell quote to say that when we give up the life we planned, we get to live the life we were given. So my planned life of marrying this adventurous man, traveling all over the world, living in some castle, something like that, right? So as I gave that up and take on the real responsibilities of the life I was given, the doors just flew open. And that
Right.
is that, right? I know you've experienced that. So someone came to Miami and I was invited to attend this meeting, and it was people interested in a parent support group. My daughter Alex was only a year and a half. I said, okay, I'll go. There are 50 people divided up into parents and then providers over in this room. And as you know, because you've done community work, what started out as 50, before too long, it became 3 people. And then a year and a half later, it was the last person. There was 2 of us, and she's moving, and she brings me the files to my house.
By the way, Paula, it's on you.
And she goes, and we were based in an agency, and she goes, and don't even base it in the agency because they pretend to care about it more than they really do.
Right.
It's going to need the fire in the belly, and so I'm a Leo. If people love, astrology thing, I have the
You know what?
fire in the belly.
I'm not a big believer in astrology, but I am a Leo. So when was your? I'm the 17th of August. That's when.
Oh, I'm 11.
Yeah. So
Yes.
I don't know what that means, but but certainly I think the problem I've got, and I don't know if you share this, the problem I've got is I do like to drive stuff forward with a bit of passion. Do you know what I mean? I do. I don't know whether that's a summer baby thing. What do you think? I get the impression you're similar in that regard.
Oh no, absolutely. And so yeah, so we're fire starters, and I like to start. My challenge is then after I've planted the seeds to stay with it, right? So but I mean years I stay with things. I mean I don't mean moments, but yeah, so that's what happened. And then I remember my son Jaime was 7 days old when she was brought over the files, and they sat on the kitchen chair for a long time in the corner. And then everybody just came to me looking, not at the moment, it doesn't feel like that, right? But the eagle view of things.
Yeah.
And we started meeting. I trained parents to help other parents. Been invited then to be a spokesperson on the state level, national level. Legislation around the early intervention was on the docket in '92. I formed parents to go to the Capitol and take their children around in their strollers and walkers and pass out leaflets. So I ended up, it just opened another door into the University of Miami, and they invited me to apply to a position that kind of was formulated to help bring in that passion, that perspective of the family into a pediatric residence training residency, and then other disciplines.
What was missing in perspective that you think?
Yeah. Oh, so much judgment around disability. Oh my gosh. So I did one of the most beautiful things I did was matched pediatricians, residents with parents, and they went to the parents' homes and they saw the context of the child in the family environment. Yeah, and then I actually did research on it. They wrote up a 1-page summary, and then myself and another pediatrician, we faculty there at the medical school, we then summarized the research and published it and so forth, because what they said, it was a life-changing experience to be in the homes, and really spoke to the change in attitude and their judgment and assumption
of the practitioners.
Yes.
Yeah, interesting.
Yes.
So what changed in their minds? What did they see that was where they got the insight? Help me understand a bit about that.
Okay. Well, this one pediatrician resident comes to mind. He goes, this is his story real quick. He goes, I drove up, it was a very large house, And so I assumed that there had been a medical lawsuit. And the woman coming to the door was of color, and I assumed that she was the maid. Then I walk in. These were his all assumptions, and then I see the child on the floor, and he looked very normal in quotes. And I assumed the child with a disability was hidden away somewhere else in the house. Literally, he wrote that up in his paper, and I got to speak to him about it.
Yes,
And it was
interesting.
just a classic, right? So it was there was no lawsuit. The parents were two prominent lawyers in Miami. The person answering the door was the mother, and the child in the kitchen was the child,
Yeah.
but with a hidden disability that was very
Yeah.
significant from being born premature. So
Yeah.
those were some of the examples, but is heart opening. So that was my role at the medical school, was to bring in the necessity to work to bring families on board with them, right? To be a family-centered focus, to really listen, and then open up the heart, where you listen from the heart without
Yeah,
lose
it's
your role.
interesting. Do you think
Yeah.
you can lose that as a medical professional sometimes because of just and even so, what do we do? I mean, I know this is a really big question, Paul. But what do we do to change the way that how do we make in Western cultures medicine more people focused?
Yeah, I just presented back to the grand rounds. Can you imagine? I resigned in 2007, and Friday, like 5 days ago, I presented to the grand rounds again back at the same university for the first time ever. So I think it's really about understanding, who we are. That's my my move from family-centered is a cognitive approach, almost a behavioral cognitive, to really understanding that we have the power to affect change with our mind and our thoughts and our heart. And when we do that, we are affecting change. It's the power of prayer. It's the power that our thoughts and what lives on us and who we are influences, impacts. And I gave many, many examples to them about that. So I really feel that the work is, the value of really knowing oneself and staying centered in one's heart, and training physicians about doing that.
Yeah.
Mindfulness, for example, all of the kind of Eastern, we think of it, Eastern philosophies and techniques, also Native American here in the United States, indigenous, as a way of resetting our fight or flight. And
it's really interesting that I mean, so I'm doing a piece of work in my day job at the minute that's sort of aligned to this, and that know thyself element comes from Western philosophy as well, doesn't it? Because the Stoics and used to say that you need to know thyself. But what's interesting, and again, the work that I'm doing on the day job at the minute that aligns to this, is a lot of my financial planning clients at Savello are approaching a time of their life where they're thinking about making a change. So they're in a position where they've built wealth or they've built financial independence, and they're leaving their careers that they might have worked in for a sort of few decades and going, right, what's next in my life? And part of the problem sometimes is that we align purpose with occupation. And actually, life's purpose is broader than that, right? Thinking about sort of what's really important to us as humans can be taken over when we're working, but thinking a bit more deeply about, well, if I get to the end, what do I really want to be proud of? It's not really going to be the job. It's going to be that stuff that really means the most to me. What do you think?
No, absolutely. I totally agree with that. And I think we're expecting something else about life but we're living life every second, and that is life. And so how are we living every second becomes more the important question at the same time, because if we're living in the moment, that legacy that we hope to leave behind, or that future thing that we want, is actually more probable, right? Because we're paying attention to this moment in time, which is life. And I think that's
it's
been
being more present, isn't it?
yes, it's a big shift in me. And I continue to remind myself of that, Chris.
Well, when you've got time, you need to teach me how to do it, because I struggle with that a bit.
Yes, I will.
I suppose you did all that amazing work in Miami, setting up that group, helping mums and dads, parents of disabled kids, connect with each other and support each other.
Yes.
That also resulted in you building awareness through the work you did at the University of Miami to sort of just understanding the needs of those families more. What was next?
Actually, I want to share that in doing all of that, and at the university, and the end of my part at the university, I ended up getting my PhD. And I defended my PhD when I was 55 years old. So I've just put that in there as we are by nature life learners.
Yeah,
and if
100%.
we go in flow, right? If we're in flow with what we want to do, and that was too late and I shouldn't, and who does that now? If we're in flow with what our soul or our spirit wants to do, we'll do a lot of crazy things, 100%. So that was pretty crazy, and I'm proud of myself for that. And
what was your dissertation on? What did you do your thesis on?
Yeah, well, again, it was looking at family-centered care practices. So the legislation I helped pass as a young mother, I ended up being the content specialist and developing the questions for the U.S. Department of Education's accountability survey that states still have to fill out. Right. So parents have to say how well the state's empowering them to take care of their children. And then I ended up writing my dissertation on one of the states' report out. And looking at cultural diversity was a big interest of mine. And really income. Are we, do we treat, I guess, as the all families the same, right? Regardless of income and regardless of disability. Those were my three things. Yeah,
love it, absolutely love it. And I love the fact that actually your work has had a positive impact in the real world, because there's state organisations that actually use the work. It's brilliant. Absolutely love it. So bring us forward to now. What do you spend your time doing now, and what ignites that Leo passion in you today?
A couple things. What I'm doing right now is working with youth. And interestingly, I love working with girls. I love working with middle school girls. And to share with the listeners that my daughter Alex passed away when she was 12. And I think that that's probably no coincidence that I feel that I'm kind of carrying forward, right? Something that got split off, that didn't finish in the way that my heart wanted it to, I think is propelling me in part into this work. And the other thing with my daughter's death, Chris, in 1996, I ended up leaving the university 11 years after her death, and ended up on the spiritual path. I didn't say, let me go find myself. I thought I was going to go apply for a university position elsewhere, but stumbled into, it's just, again, a fated experience or a destiny point in time, right? So it opened up this whole world of what's known as holistic medicine. Who am I is part of that question, and bringing that to youth. Yeah.
That's something I certainly want to explore. My experience, and I think I might mention this to you on the podcast slightly before, was death in our lives, particularly for people we love, or serious illness. A a health scare in our own lives can really change our perspective on the world, in my experience. As long as you're comfortable talking about this, and I want to make sure that you are, what perspective changed in your lives, either short or short, medium, or long term, when you lost Alex?
Yeah. Short term, I really lived in grief quite a long time, and had subsequent losses. So it was a tremendous impact that I made a almost conscious choice, I would say, that I either, because of the way that Alex died, she died at home. She died unexpected. She came home from the hospital the day before. So when you find your own daughter dead in the morning, to say it very like that, right? So the amount of guilt that I had to deal with in that, where was I in all of that mess? And we all think we had something to do with the individual's death. And I can say absolutely, I assuredly say now that we don't, that it's like time stamped in that way.
Yeah.
But we have things left behind, the way people die, I feel, to sort out.
Yeah.
Right. And so one of my big sort outs was around guilt. And I sorted it out on the couch for 5 years, 4 days a week, with in analysis, and in other forms as well, and other continued work, to really let go of this pattern I had of finding myself wrong. When anything went wrong, I contributed to what went wrong. An old childhood imprint that I carried into my daughter's death. So I would say the grief work left behind, I just encourage people to do it, right? To really dig in and find those answers. So where was I in all this mess? And then my other question was, where is God in all of this mess? And that I found on my spiritual path, and God is in all things. So there's no separation from that. And there's no curse, and death is not tragic. It's not a curse. It's not because of something. It is. And I come to that from really kind of delving into and living that, to the degree possible, that indigenous perspective of that we are of the earth and those cycles, right, of life.
And I think grief is one of those, regardless of what you believe spiritually, grief is certainly one of those cycles that we've got to go through, right? It's
yes,
just like,
there's no avoiding it.
There's no getting away from it. We have to grieve, and
yes,
I think it's an interesting one, because I think about when I lost my mum in 2019, and I still think I'm going through that grief process. Because I don't want to use this as a counselling session, Paula, so I won't. But certainly, I say to Cassie quite a lot. I'm getting emotional now. There's two of us getting involved in the emotion. I say to Cassie quite a lot. I wished, and I know I can't do anything about it, but I wished I would have spent the limited time I knew we had, like before 2019, just doing things different. Funny enough, you talk about Greece. We were meant to actually go to where was it, Cass? My mum always wanted to go to Cyprus before before Greece, before she got ill. And we booked, before we knew she was ill, we booked a holiday to Cyprus and paid for my mum to go. Sorry, that's my dog. Apologies, I'm podcasting from home today. She didn't get to go, and she said to me, "Can you take some of my ashes?" And there's a beautiful place in Cyprus called Aphrodite's birthplace, which is like a rock, like. And I think about that and go, we missed the opportunity to spend the time with her, but hopefully we pay tribute by, doing her wishes at the end. It's interesting. So I think you need to grieve, and I agree with you. I think the process of grief takes time, right? It just you need to go through it. But yeah, so talk to me. I suppose one of the things that I'm interested in is the book you wrote about your experience going through Alex's death and what you learned from it. And I suppose I've got two questions on that.
Yeah.
Firstly, I'd love to know about the book, and I'd love for you to share with our audience a little bit about the book. But also, number two is my experience. Funny enough, so that was Paula's first part of Paula's story. Next week, we're going to have the second part. Without further ado,
Tis the end of another podcast. The end, never truly the end, because the end is always the beginning of something entirely new. Joke of the week.
go on then.
Did you hear about the new restaurant called Karma?
No, I haven't had a new restaurant called Karma.
There's no menu. You just get what you deserve.
But that was good. That was actually good. I really like that.
I went back to the Reader's Digest.
Thank you, Reader's Digest.
Thank you, Reader's Digest.
Supplying the jokes. And on that note, it's the end of another podcast. We will see you, my friends, on the Kindness Project very soon.
Bye.
Bye.